But that's when they shipped us out to Fort Sad. And Fort Sad was building up, was building up. And when we got there, they gave us a Watson hut to live in, and our place where we was repairing aircraft was bombed out RAF hangars that the Germans had bombed them out, and they'd clean them up, and there was no top or nothing, and we was repairing aircraft and just on the cement floor. And we didn't know at the time, but they were building our part of the base, which was prefabbed over the south end of the field, see, and which was our three big hangars and a supply hangar and all the supply buildings and all our barracks were all prefabbed, and our barracks was all plywood, 17 men to the barracks. That's what they moved us over there about 6 weeks after we got there, and that's where we stayed.
So you moved out of the Quonset hut and into the barracks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me a little bit about the fourth SAD. Tell me again what SAD stands for.
Beg pardon?
What SAD stands for.
Force Strategic Air Depot.
Okay. And where was that located?
Four SADs. The first SAD was Burtonwood, England, but I don't know where the other two were. Okay. But the first one was Burtonwood, and we were the fourth one.
Okay. And where was that located?
Just out of Ipswich, about 12, 14 miles. Okay. That's over on the east side of England, pretty close to, wasn't too far from the coast.
So tell me about what you were doing there at the fourth SAD. What was your duty?
Well, we were supposed to just have so many days to get an damaged aircraft back in the air, and we had P-47s and P-51s, and not at that point in time. We had P-47s, P-38s, and a few P-51s, not very many, older ones. And we repaired those aircraft until, got them back in the air. And then when the P-51s, the later models came out, like I said before, when they added the sixth gun, the other two outside guns on, when the pilot would get into a tight turn, he'd buckle that wing. And we had to replace those wings. And the wing is actually half of the aircraft. When you lift the fuselage off the wing, you half your plane's gone. But anyway, we'd get those. Me and my crew, and I don't know, about a dozen or so other crews, was given a hangar, and that's all we did was assemble aircraft wings, P-51 wings, and we did that for until the war's end. Mm-hmm. And we got to where we was pretty good at it.
How many was in your crew?
I got 4 men.
4 men.
4 men.
So in that photograph that you showed me, that's the 4 men that were in your crew?
There's 1, 2, 5 men in that crew.
Yeah.
But 1 man didn't stay very long. Okay. If it wouldn't work on my crew, I wouldn't keep him. They gave me 1 guy, and he was an orderly in the officers' quarters. And the line chief came over, brought him to me and said, "John, you think you can make a mechanic out of him?" I said, if he wants to learn, I'm willing to try him out. And he made a good mechanic. He said, "I would do anything in the world rather than go back in that officer's quarters." And he would. He'd do anything I tell him to do, He was a good mechanic. He didn't want to be an orderly.
Do you remember any of the men that you worked with?
Oh, yeah. I spoke. Lonnie Morris, we corresponded until he's gone now, but he had a stroke 10, 15 years ago, and we still corresponded. I did with his wife a long time after that until he expired, But I lost contact with her, so I don't know what's happened. But he's the only one I ever corresponded with out of the crew,
So you stayed at 4th SAD. You stayed there the whole time until the war ended?
Beg pardon?
You stayed at 4th SAD the whole time until the war ended?
I stayed 20 months there, yeah. Okay. And then when the war ended, they shipped us home by the point system. And I had 51 points, and they was all service points. And service points, you had so many points for how many times, how many long you been in, and how long you been overseas, and so many points for such things. And I only had 51 points. Well, that was a long ways from coming home. And so I had to stay there at the base. So they took me and a bunch of other guys, and we disassembled that base. We tore that base down and got rid of it. And when we finished tearing that base down, they shipped me to France.
So what year was it that you were shipped to France? Do you remember when you were shipped
Well,
to France?
I went to France about, I came home in February, and I was in France about 4 months. So 4 months prior to that's when I went to France, about October, September, October
Oh, 45?
of 45. And that's when I went from 8th Air Force down back to 9th Air Force. See, in the States here, I was in the 9th Air Force. Then when I went overseas, they put me in the 8th Air Force. And then when I went to France, they put me back in the 9th Air Force.
Now, going back to your time at 4th SAD, tell me a little bit about the kind of damage that you would see on the planes.
Well, you see mostly bullet holes, some metal torn off or whatever. But if a plane was damaged too bad, he never got home. You know, he never got home. But most of the stuff we had was mostly bullet damage, and that you could repair pretty quick. You know, but if like now those wings being buckled, that wasn't due to artillery fire or attack fire or whatever. That was during combat, you know, doing maneuvers. But if a plane was hit very hard, he never got back home, because if shrapnel hit, like a P-51, if shrapnel hit a coolant line, that plane wouldn't fly very long. It'd be forced down because the engine burned up, see. And the old P-47, I've seen some of them come back home with a cylinder gone off of it, and they're still flying, you know.
Now, the planes that were coming in for your men to repair, where were they coming from? What battles were they involved in, or where were they involved?
Oh, usually all over Europe there, you know, France or Belgium or Germany or Holland or wherever they might be, you know. But we had, Fort SAD was here, say, and operations was over here. And this operations had 100 planes. They had to get 100 planes in the air every time they went up. They got 100 planes in the air. And that 100, out of the 100 planes, they might lose 10 or 15 that one day, see. And maybe out of the 10 or 15, maybe only 2 to get back. The rest of them wouldn't go home, see. Out of the 2 come back, maybe we'd get them over there if we'd fix them, see. Maybe they would didn't have a scratch, but.
So they would be flying the damaged planes back?
Do what?
They would be flying the damaged planes back?
Oh, yeah. If they could fly them back, they'd fly them back. But a lot of times they'd land in the British field or some other field someplace away from the home base, see. And then that's when we'd have to go over and patch them up to get them home, see. Okay. We'd go over to a British base and patch up a plane and get it back, see. At least get it back to our place to where we could fix it, see.
Did you, do you have any specific memories from being there of something that was difficult or very memorable for you at that time?
Well, no, not really. We had one B-24 that crashed right there in supply area, in a supply barracks. And I don't remember how many people was in supply, but there was quite a few. And we had an air raid alert, and these bombers were coming home. And they claimed that some German plane had slipped in with our bombers and shot down this B-24. And when our bombers were coming back, they were just over the treetops coming home. See, they just down on street level almost to get back home. And they hit this B-24, and all the guys had bailed out. And this B-24 they thought they was clear of us, but the B-24 went over and circled and came back by itself, and then crashed in the supply barracks. Burned up a bunch of barracks, but everybody was out because we was out on the air raid alert. We was all in foxholes. Right? Oh. And that's why nobody was killed, because everybody was out, see. If we hadn't had that air raid alert, been a bunch of guys in bed, see, that plane would have hit.
Did you have a lot of air raids?
3 or 4 is all. You know, we got hit. The Germans hit us 3 or 4 times, strafing at night. You know, they'd come in.
Can you describe that? What that was like?
Well, the most of they would hit you and were gone. See, before you knew it, almost. See, the most troublesome we had was the old V1 bombs. I mean, little put. They went across, you know. I mean, there were V1 bombers that they sent over, and they'd send them over every 3 hours. They'd say maybe 8 or 10 of them, see. And we were right in the path where they were shipping those things from Belgium to London. And they'd send those things off, and they'd come over us, you know, maybe 5 or 6 at a time, at intervals, about 10, 15, 20 minutes apart, see. Just enough to keep you awake all night. See? You had to get out. You couldn't stay in your barracks. You had to get out your foxhole. They had to keep you awake all night. That was your main thing. See? But those V1 bombs, they never fell on us. They'd either knock them down before us or after us, or they wouldn't knock them down at all. They'd hit London, see. But that was. And the V2s now, you would hear them coming, and they didn't hit us anyway. They'd hit London, you know. And you wouldn't hear them coming until they'd already hit, and they'd hear the shriek, you know, after it already hit. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, another question that we ask is. I've asked everybody this question because they've been in various places at various times in different parts, in the Pacific or in the European front or whatever. But the question is, how did you feel about basically the people that the U.S. was fighting? For example, it would be the Germans at that point, right? How did you feel about the Germans at that time?
Well, I had no hatred for the German people. I hated the bigwigs, more or less, you know. A German soldier was just doing just like I was. He was doing what he was told to do, see. But I had no love for him, but I didn't hate him, you know. You can't hesitate to shoot a man because he's going to shoot you first, you know, if you don't. But I didn't have deep hatred for him. I didn't love him, but you know, it was a war fight, and you had to win the war, whatever the cost may be. You know, you can't hesitate to shoot somebody. You know.
Now, were you being the aero engineer? Were you ever like? Once you got over into England, were you ever up in the air with a pilot and a co-pilot, you know, that kind of setup, or were you always on the ground fixing planes? Did you ever get up in a plane and
Oh
fly?
yeah, I flew all the time in Florida. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we flew about every third day. We had 4-hour flights. about every third day. And that was more or less pilot training, you know, and your training too, because you had bombing runs to make. You had to practice bomb runs, but we only had the 3-man crew. We didn't have a whole bomb load of personnel, you know, because there was no reason to have them. You know, you didn't have a tail gunner or waist gunners or radio operators or none of that because you didn't need them. You only needed 3 men. See, what you had to bomb? You had to bomb the bombardier. You had to have him, but 4 men. But other than that, you didn't have to have anybody else.
Now, what about in England? Did you ever go up in a plane in England?
Do what?
Did you ever fly in England?
No. Huh? Oh yeah. We. The only time I flew in England was we'd go to. This was after the war. Now, we went to France to get champagne for the officers. We had a little small aircraft that the pilot would take us over to get the champagne. You know, we'd go over and get a load of champagne, bring for the officers. Mm-hmm. But when I got to France, I finally got back on flying status, and we flew mail from Villers-Cotterêts to Germany, Wiesbaden. We flew from Villers-Cotterêts to Wiesbaden, air hop, mail hop. We carried mail over, carried mail back.
Okay. And the war had ended by that.
That was the war was gone. I mean, that was after the war. See.
Okay. Now, what do you
change tapes? Sorry to cut you off.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a good place to cut me off.
Yes. I was waiting. I was hoping you'd get the question in.
Yeah. We don't have too many questions left, so we're getting close to the end.
But they kept, I heard this for a year or better before the war broke out. There goes another train load of scraps to Japan so they can make bullets and fire back at us. That's exactly what we're shipping all that stuff over to them.
We had, in France, we had a bunch of German prisoners that helped us down on the front line, you know, kept the place clean and whatever. And you try to give them a gun, you know, they'd run backwards. They're nice guys. They're nice blonde. Every one of them are blonde heads, you know.
Yeah.
Nice looking guys.
So in France, you were stationed where? Where in France?
Villers-Cotterêts, just outside of Paris, about 8 miles, I think it was.
And I think you wrote down something so I can figure out what the spelling is of that.
Yeah.
Because that's French.
Villers-Cotterêts.
Okay.
See, when I first got there, we went into a chateau. That's a big, like a hotel, see. And then they finally got a place up on the field for us. It was a Quonset hut. They got Quonset huts ready for us. That's where we had our bunks. And I had a little coke stove about that big. It wouldn't heat nothing, you know. So we piped 150 octane gas into it till they caught us at it. But you meter it in just a little bit, and it was all right. See,
Yeah.
It burned real slow.
Well, that was during the winter, so.
Darn right, it was
needs to
cold.
be- Yeah. When you went into France, and this is after the wars ended, do you remember what it looked like? What it looked like there? What the landscape looked like? What did the town look like? You know?
Well, it looked all right to me. I mean,
You hadn't been affected by the war?
No. No. The fact is, England looked worse than France ever did. But England was bombed out, you know. But France didn't. Now, we used to go to Reims, France, to get that champagne. The place was pretty well bombed out, you know. Reims was. But that was after the war, you know.
Now, where were you on VE Day?
Victory in Europe, I was on Fort Sad, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, they
You
They
remember
were-
hearing the news?
they wouldn't let us go to town. We had to stay on base.
How did you feel about that?
Well, you couldn't celebrate. You just would. When you want to celebrate, you do is go down to the pub and have a beer. You know, that's all you did. Because they didn't want any GIs to go to town, afraid we might tear up the town. You know, I don't know why they thought that, but I guess they thought it, so they just stay home.
Yeah. How did you feel about hearing that the war was ending?
Well, I was kind of glad of it, you know. I know Dad wrote to me one time and said, "When are you going to come home?" Well, I didn't have nothing to say about it, you know. But I was there for the duration plus.